Hi guys, I'm Aidan from G2G Coaching. So the third part in this series, I'm going to go over actually how you load and just different types of doing it, just to cover them for the basis of anybody watching the video who may have any questions. So I want to start off with what we really kind of focus on at G2G Coaching, and specifically with our members and what's sort of important. So predominantly we'll see people who really haven't ever taken control of their own program before, so they're not too aware of exactly how to load, or again, they're returning from an injury, maybe currently in like the early stage of an injury, movement related, and trying to get out of that pattern, or coming back from more of a traumatic injury and build strength back up again. And it's something that we've got to take into account for more general kind of purposes, in terms of making progress, in terms of getting stronger, in terms of adding muscle mass and making your session harder. You're really looking at trying to just add weight to the bar or to the exercise every single week if you can, especially when you are pretty new to that concept. And there's lots of different ways of scheduling this if you're not, but I kind of want to focus on that. It's very important. You're basically giving your body the message that it needs to adapt. And without continuously trying to progress the load as regularly as you can, in most circumstances, we would say in here it's weekly, you don't really give yourself the chance to adapt to anything. You kind of stay in the same position. Okay, so that's really that's kind of crucial. Okay, for certain exercises that you can't add load to the bar, there's other ways to progress on it. The thing to take into account in this is other ways of creating adaptation if adding load to the bar maybe isn't the most sensible idea. And the case of that would be in an injury basis, or someone trying to regain a movement pattern. The most effective way here is usually progressing sets or focusing more on reps. So what I mean by that is taking say 4 sets of something and having a slight range of reps, say 6 to 10 or maybe greater than that, finding a load that is challenging and progressing through those reps week on week until you get from 6 reps to 10 reps for those 4 sets. And then after that, adding a small amount of load to the bar and progressing that. People will frequently make the mistake of adding too much load to the bar. Okay, they're maybe just unaware of what to do, or they're very keen to get back to the previous stage that they were at, where they identify as being stronger, or who knows what it is, and they push that too aggressively and then risk mechanical breakdown, failure in technique, or just annoying an injury again. So I usually go with that initially, rather than pushing add load to the bar every single week. And if it's really early stages of something, like a movement pattern has been ingrained in someone and they really need to take the time to get beyond that, is we'll work on progressing through sets. So the reps stay the same, the load gets fixed on the first week. Let's say they then stay, let's say 10 reps, and week on week they try and add a set. And we'll usually do that within a specific period of time, and that's known as density training. So making that block of time more dense of work is within it. So you're not challenging by progressively adding more and more weight to the bar, where there's more of a chance of technique breaking down, and you do end up causing a bit more fatigue of the central nervous system, depending on what the load is. You are more taxing energy systems and recovery, and the person's ability to hold technique and position under fatigue. Also, if they're concerned about progressing load because they're concerned about injuring themselves, that's a good way to create adaptation within that area by just getting them to stick with that load if it's a bit of a psychological battle, and just add more and more sets and get stress from there until they get comfortable with it, that they go from 3 sets to 5 or 6, and then you add some weight to the bar and repeat that pattern. But basically the main thing is over time, the weight that is on that bar or the difficulty of that exercise has to progress, otherwise you stay basically at the same stage or same level. There's multiple different ways once you get past the initial phase of loading weekly, or the basics of loading, that you can then help someone continue to progress their load. So once someone goes beyond, say, a beginner stage or a novice, and it's not as easy just to continuously add weight to the bar, you got to think of other methods of doing this. So they've got progressive overload is the kind of overall arching theme here, and that just means that progressively you need to add weight to the bar. You got to overload. Okay, There's linear, non-linear, which linear just means you add weight every single week or just progressively add more and more. And non-linear or waves just means that it fluctuates. It's higher one week, it's down the next, or every 2 weeks, and it's not quite a straightforward line. So there's ways of doing that whenever someone basically feels more fatigued, say from the load they're lifting, and they need to back off 1 week and then scale it back up than the one afterwards. Or there's percentage based, which means that you find out what the heaviest number someone can lift is, and you take a percentage of that, which would equate to what they could do for 10 reps. So usually someone will be able to do 75% of their 1 repetition maximum for 10 reps, usually. And you base their program around that. This is really, really good for people who are concerned about push and load and they don't trust their judgment on it, so they give them targets to hit. For someone who is maybe their training fluctuates from week to week in terms of recovery and in terms of what they're able to do. They have a very stressful life or busy life. Their sleeping isn't always the greatest. Sometimes they're a bit older. A percentage-based program isn't always a fantastic idea, nor is just continually adding weight to the bar every single week. You usually need to give a wee bit more variation and usually account for how that person feels upon the day. If someone has been training for a long period of time and is in that situation, which is usually what we get, then something that is more auto-regulated, as in they can determine how they feel that day, such as reps in reserve or an RPE, which just means you can assess and judge what weight you're using on that day based upon how you feel, is pretty crucial here. The downside to that one is it is very subjective, because if you have someone who is extremely cautious, they may be overcautious with how they feel, and you get someone who is a get after it, always pushing really hard. They're not very objective in those scenarios, and they kind of just blow past how they feel and decide to just overload the bar and push themselves too hard. For that reason, you can get other things at the minute that are more objective when it comes to auto-regulation, like push bands and velocity training and apps that tell you how you're feeling that day and how to base your training off of that. Those are all methods really to kind of do the exact same job. But in general, that's how you can kind of set up progressing weight in the bar and increasing load outside of what we kind of discussed, that there's other methods, and it's worth taking that in the account as you progress further and further down your training or your exercise journey or your strength journey. But for the purposes of what we do at G2G, this is usually the stuff that we tend to look at based upon the populations that we see and we basically advise.